Okay. Erev Tov Kulam. We are holding in the Tzurba series of halachot. We are today focusing on volume 9, or Chaim, and we're holding on Tefillin. We last week in Shir 1 here, we got up to page 35. Last time, Alkil, when I placed the Shir on the screen, we were able to see the pages, or it was too small, you couldn't see them?
Last time you didn't have the week
time before, yeah.
Yeah.
It was, you want me to do it again? Yeah, I can put it on.
Maybe I'd rather see you. Well,
Okay,
it doesn't
fine.
matter really.
Well, if you want me to put it on, I put it on. Just let me know. I have to log into it, but I can get it on.
If Abraham wants, that's fine with me. It doesn't really matter. So I prefer to see you, but
let's do 5-10 minutes. If you think you need it on, tell me. I'll put it on. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Here we go. Okay. So we dealt with some halachot. Just to review, b'kitzur, some of the halachot from last week. So we just get into the mode of where we're holding. We said that one of the parts of wearing tefillin, in order to be allowed to wear tefillin, you have to have what's called a guf naki, a clean body, which means you cannot wind. You have to be able to control your stomach, your digestive system enough that you don't pass any gas, you don't break wind, and the person has to make sure that he has a guf naki when he davens. So much so that we learned the person has stomach aches and he knows he cannot have a clean body even for a few minutes. He's not allowed to put on tefillin that day, because you have to have a guf naki when putting on tefillin. The Al Yosef did bring down that if a person knows he can do it, he'll have time enough to say Shema and Shmona Esrei, and he has a guf naki during that time, nothing is bothering him, he would be allowed to put on tefillin, say Shema and Shmona Esrei. But if he knows he don't even have those 10 minutes or whatever it is, he's not allowed to put it on that day.
Quick question before we begin.
Yes, Avram.
Okay, some people, let's say young or old, they have weak sphinx, and they have incontinence. How do they go around it? And they might.
So they would have to clean themselves up and stuff like that, and try to put on tefillin at a period of time when they know they'll be okay. So they have to, set themselves up, their schedule, in such a way. As a practical example, when I was working as a nurse on the floors in Maimonides, we had a lot of patients that were religious, and their family members would say, as soon as he uses the bathroom, he make in the bed, but afterwards they said, as soon as he did, let us know, we'll try to, as soon as the nurses clean him up, aides clean him up, this way he has a guf naki, for 10 minutes we'll put tefillin on him or whatever it is. So a person will have to set it up, and that leads to the question of when you can put tefillin on a child. So the Shulchan Aruch says that as soon as a child knows how to keep a guf naki, you have to put on tefillin on him. The Chama said that already is from the age of 11, 12, a child should already start putting on tefillin. The Ramah says no, you only start at 13 exactly. The Rizal seems to be saying to start at 13 also, the Hasidim do. But the others are Chashulchan and others say, and the Mishnah Berurah says that in order for the child to practice, they put it on a month or 2 in advance. I think that is the common minhag most people now do, is put on a month and 2 in advance. They brought down from Rabbi Eli Mansour that in the Syrian communities that most boys are putting on tefillin 6 months in advance. That's what I saw brought down. Based on this, we said that you cannot sleep in tefillin. You cannot sleep in tefillin because when a person sleeps in tefillin, he doesn't have control of his body faculties, and therefore he may pass gas and won't have a guf naki, won't have a clean body while wearing his tefillin. The Rambam says, we're just going to skip to the Rambam says that as long as he's sleeping with something over his tefillin, and his head is in his knees, and it's only for 54 seconds or so, so then it's a very short sleep. It's not considered that he's losing his mind from tefillin. Therefore, if a person takes a short little nap of 54 seconds and his talus is over his tefillin and his head is in between his knees, he would be allowed to take a short nap for 54 seconds, like some 72 seconds, whatever it was, and that would be allowed. Now, how practical that is, it's more like if you see someone dozing off right? You don't have to go and kind of like wake him up. If he's falling asleep, the full sleep, you have to wake him up. He's not allowed to wear tefillin like that. But if you see him wearing his tefillin and he's just dozing off like that, and he's waking up every couple of seconds, technically that's not considered losing his mind from tefillin. Then we dealt a little bit into the concept of what is hesach dat by tefillin. We had Rabbeinu Yonah who said it doesn't mean that you're not thinking about your tefillin. That's not considered not thinking about tefillin. It means when you're doing something opposite than you're supposed to be doing. You're joking, you're playing around. That's called hesach dat from tefillin. As long as you're somewhat serious, even though you're not thinking about tefillin, that's okay. That's how he says they used to wear it all day and they did business, how they did business and do other things. If they're wearing tefillin, as long as you're serious. There were other opinions that we brought down, the Rambam, the Ramban, that no, the whole time you wear tefillin, you have to think about it. And if you're not thinking about your tefillin, then that's considered a hesach dat. And based on that, we have an halacha on the Shulchan Aruch that you're supposed to continuously touching your tefillin while you're wearing it. This way, you're always remembering that you're wearing it. Now, we said during Shemona Esrei, during Shema, during any part of the prayer that you're paying attention to the prayer, that's enough. You don't have to think about your tefillin. That is enough. You had a question, Mefe?
No, why you got how'd you get to the 54, 72 seconds?
That's what's considered a short nap. It's considered a short nap. We had last week. We went through it. 50. Okay, so it has to do with the amount needed to walk 100 amot, which is slightly less than 1 minute. That's where it's coming from.
What's the source for this? The original source for this?
The sleeping? Why it has to be less than a minute? 100 amot.
Where is this source from?
Tell you right now, 44:1. Because he brings it down here too in the Yalkut Yosef. He says according to the Rambam, it's permissible to sleep while wearing tefillin only if he's seated in this awkward position with his head between his knees. Because the Mishnah explains the length of his nap is not limited, but it is assumed that a person will not remain asleep for more than 54 seconds while in that position. The Talmud's term, as long as it takes to walk 100 cubits, is interpreted as 54 seconds. The Gemara, he's saying it's from the Gemara. I don't see it right this second. Berachot 23b. Okay, Berachot 23b. All right, fine. That is a review pretty much from last week where we held off on halachot of tefillin. So this week we're starting on page 35, and we're going to be dealing with eating and drinking while wearing tefillin. Okay, so we're starting at the Gemara Berachot. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak said, "Hanichnas lesudat keva." A person is going into a real seudah, meaning he's sitting down to a real meal. He's not snacking. He choletz tefilav v'achar kach, and then he can walk in to eat. If you're sitting down to a sudat keva, you have to take off your tefillin. This is talking about the Talmudical times where they would wear tefillin all day, right? Oh, and it's arguing with Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Chia says you don't just take it out before you walk in, but rather you take out your tefillin at the table where you're going to eat, and you place it next to you at the table. And then and that's admirable. That's the hidur. Vad emat, and for how long does he keep it off? When does he basically can put his tefillin back on? Especially in the Talmudical times where they wear tefillin all day. So Amar Nachman bar Yitzchak ad zeman beracha, until he's going to say Birkat Hamazon. So when you would wear tefillin all day, when you sit down to a sudat keva, a meal that you're actually eating at, you're going to take off your tefillin. According to Rabbi Chia, you will place your tefillin next to you while you're eating, and as soon as you are ready to say Birkat Hamazon, you're going to put your tefillin back on.
We wore that while we eat it, we're gonna forget about tefillin.
So why? Let's see. Choletz tefilav. He takes off his tefillin, right? Shema yishtakeh b'seudah because he might become shikar, he might become drunk during his meal. So you cannot be drunk and wear tefillin at the same time, right? So make sure you're putting on tefillin and purim before you get drunk, right? So you can't be drunk and have tefillin on. So you have to take off your tefillin while you are eating because you may become drunk. Because, and especially in the olden days, I don't know, today most people do that. Most seudot that I eat, I'm not drinking alcohol at, right? It's only Shabbat, Yom Tov, or it's a good barbecue, some manti or something special, in case something alcohol comes out. But other than that, we're not. But they apparently would eat wine, would be something, beer would be a common drink. So it would be something that they would worry about, that they would become drunk while eating. Therefore, they have to take off their tefillin. And it's going to be a embarrassment to tefillin to keep it on while being drunk. That's the source for this. Okay. So what do we see from here? It's not really a problem of eating with your tefillin on. The problem is into a real meal and perhaps you're going to get drunk. The Beit Yosef on page 36, the Beit Yosef says as follows. It's only when you're eating a substantial meal where you're going to eat real food, you're going to sit down to a meal, or anything that's considered as sudat kevad that you would have to go into a sukkah, that you cannot eat with your tefillin on. We're going to see that in a second. But anything that's considered a snack, whatever is considered a snack by sukkah that you can eat outside the sukkah, you can eat with your tefillin. And he says, the Beit Yosef, Moran Yosef Karo, says that it's only eating a substantial meal that you're not allowed to wear your tefillin and eat, but if you're eating snacks, you're allowed to. And that's what he brings also as well in the Shulchan Aruch as the code. He brings the halacha as follows, Or Chaim and Simon Mem, Sif Het, Hanichnas leSeudat Keva, a person who goes into a substantial meal, a regular meal, Chotzin, U'Menichin ala Shulchan. He's learning the Rabbi Yahya. He says, take it and put it down on the table. Ad Zman Beracha. And at the Zman Beracha, and now when it's time to Birkat Hamazon, the Chozer U'Menichan. And he puts it back on. I'm assuming that he's putting it back on because he's not drunk. So he took it off because he might have gotten drunk. And now he's not drunk. He's good to bench, right? He's benching. He should be able to say everything, right? So he can put on his tefillin. Aval achilat arai ein tzarich lechaletzam. And Shulchan Aruch says it clearly that for a sudat arai, so you finish a harit, and in the shul they giving out the cake, and you want to take a bite, and you're going to continue learning with your tefillin. You don't have to take off your tefillin. You can take the cake and eat the cake or whatever it is, snacks, vegetables, whatever it is, and whatever is considered as sudat arai, you're allowed to do that while you are wearing tefillin. Yes, Malkiel.
סעודת ארעי יוצא what? Hamar kabetza of mezonot?
Okay, so let's take a look.
So
let's say the Mishnah Berurah says, you bring Mishnah Berurah in source 23. Arai, near the shiur achilat arai, hu kebetza. It is the size of a betza, which we usually say is what, 54 grams, right? Approximately 54, 55 grams.
Isn't it less than 260 grams? Because that's for that Suda. Or 54 grams, are you talking about Amutzi? What are you talking about?
55 grams of mezonot, no? Once you have 55 grams. For sukkah, are you allowed to eat more than a kibitza outside of a sukkah? You have to eat inside a sukkah. So once you have, anything that has to be eaten inside a sukkah is considered sudat kiva. Whatever you can eat outside a sukkah, and he says it straight up. B'chidin sukkah b'siman kaf reish lamed tet. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says. It's whatever the halachot of sukkah is what's considered kiva. All right, the same thing for tefillin. So you can eat as much vegetables you want. It's always considered all right. You can always eat as much vegetables you want outside the sukkah. No, not a problem. You can do that with your tefillin as well. Now, before we move on to the biur halacha, I want to just bring down here in the Shulchan, in the Yalkut Yosef on page 324, and asks a question about when it says to put your tefillin back on right before Birkat Hamazon. When are you putting it back on? After you do Ma'im Achronim, or before you do Mayim Achronim? He took off his tefillin, he ate his sudat kiva. Now he wants the bench, he's putting his tefillin back on. So does he put his tefillin back on, then do Mayim Achronim? Or does he do Mayim Achronim and then put his tefillin back on?
After. It was tefillin. Oh, my running is
If he's about to do my macaronim, then most likely that he already had in his mind, he ended the meal.
So the Rambam says, so if you have the Al Yosef English edition on page 324, note 343, he brings here the Rambam wrote in the Tefillin, he places them on the table until he washes his hands, and then he puts them on and recites Birkat Hamazon. He washes his hands, then he puts them on. And he brings the Mishnah Berurah brings down over there in this Siman. He says that make sure that one's fingers are clean before he touches his tefillin. Well, one of the reasons why you're doing Mayim Achronim is to clean your hands. So you're going to touch your oil hands, especially if you eat nice Bukharian food. Your hands are going to get nice and oily. You can start touching your tefillin. It's going to all smell like obviously afterwards. So you need to take it off, wash it, and then put it on. But he brings down other Achronim that did not mention this. Since the Shulchan Aruch rule that it's forbidden to interrupt with any activity after Mayim Achronim, right? Take it right after Mayim Achronim, not until Yidayim not. If Mayim Achronim, you have to right away do Birkat Hamazon. So how could you do Tefillin afterwards? He brings down though the Halacha Berurah, this is Rabbi David Yosef, that they say to follow the Rambam's opinion and put on Tefillin after Mayim Achronim. Apparently Tefillin could be, you could put it on after you do Mayim Achronim. So if you're wearing tefillin all day and you took it off for the food, you put it back on after Mayim Achronim. That's the practical way of doing it. All right, and we're going to talk about if people still put on tefillin all day. We'll take a look at that in a few minutes. All right, so now he brings down the Bi'ur Halacha. If a person removes the tefillin, according to the Maran, according to the Shulchan Aruch said that anytime you take off tefillin and you're putting them back on, you right away have to say another bracha. According to the Shulchan Aruch, anytime you take off tefillin, you have to say a bracha right away. Now, the Ramah says that that's not the way it is. As long as it's still within the half hour that you took it off, you don't say a beracha. Okay? This is practical for both tefillin and tzitzit. Same thing for Tallit. That's why in Yom Kippur they always tell you, if you're going home from mincha, if your Tallit is more than a half hour off, you say another beracha when you come back. If it's less than a half hour, you don't say another beracha. Now, why do we go with the Ramah? Not that we go with the Ramah, but it's the Maran Rishon Tzion Chamavadia always held that safek brachot lahakel. When it comes to safek, if you need to say this bracha or not, we don't say it. You don't want to say an extra bracha if not needed. So Shulchan Aruch says to say it. Ramah says not to say it. Safek, say it, don't say it. So therefore, safek brachot lahakel. Now, this is true by Tallit and Tefillin. However, Tefillin has a little bit of a different halacha within this half hour. Meaning, there are some times when you're not allowed to wear tefillin. Okay, sometimes you're not allowed to wear tefillin. For example, so I'm looking now on page 82 in the Yalkut Yosef, and in note 82. I will tell you, to me, I'll be honest, I didn't know this halacha till I read it last night, and it was a big hidush to me. You probably know this. You guys know halacha better than me, for 100% sure. But look what he says over here. Someone took off his tefillin, and he wants to go use the bathroom. Someone took off his tefillin to go use the bathroom. Here, on page 84. Look what he says. Someone takes off his tefillin in order to go to the bathroom. He must repeat the bracha when putting the tefillin on again. This is so even if he had every intention of putting them on as soon as he finished using the bathroom, this is because it's forbidden to wear tefillin while in the restroom. You're not allowed to wear tefillin in the bathroom. So once you take it off, it's as if you interrupted the mitzvah of tefillin. So now that you're coming back to put on tefillin, you have to say bracha. This is true, even if it's only the bathroom is a few steps away, even if you're in the bathroom for a minute, even if you thought you're going to put it right back on, he has to say the bracha again. This is only by tefillin. So you were wearing tefillin, you just said bracha la'aniach tefillin, you put on your tefillin, put on the head, you did everything. Now all of a sudden you have to use the bathroom. You took it off, you put it down, you ran to the bathroom, you came back. It's 1 minute later. You're so fast, under 60 seconds, you're back. You still have to say, and you're putting on tefillin again, you have to say the bracha la'aniach tefillin again. You cannot just put it on again. You have to say la'aniach tefillin again. Now, this is different than tzitzit. Why is it different than tzitzit? Why is it different than tzitzit? So I'm going to take out the Yaakov Yosef English edition. Anytime, if you
Tzitzit is a beged, and you can go with a beged to the bathroom.
Very good, Ariel. Very good. Exactly. Tzitzit is a beged. It's a garment. It's a clothing. And technically, just like you walk in with your talit katan into the bathroom, there's no issue. You're really allowed to go in with your talit gadol. When I was learning this halakha with someone last night, he told me, it once happened to me. I had to use the bathroom. I ran into the bathroom, and then I realized my talit gadol was still on me, and I felt so bad. And I said, no, technically it was. It's not. I guess you guys should take it off. It's a better thing to take it off. But technically, there's no problem with going into the bathroom with your talit. So therefore, even if you took off your talit before going in, you didn't have to. So there was no break in the mitzvah of the talit. Therefore, you do not say a bracha on your talit if you took it off before you went to the bathroom and put it back on. But tefillin, you take it off, when you put it back on, you have to say a bracha. So now,
That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line halakha, yes. If you go to the bathroom and you took off your tefillin, you took off your talit and tefillin, you're coming back from the bathroom now, talit, you put on without a bracha, the bracha from before is still good. The tefillin, you have to say another bracha on. Yes, Malkiel.
What if I need to step outside? Knowingly, I knew that I was going to have to take it off, to step outside for 5 minutes, come back, put it on.
Okay, so in
Is
that
it the same case?
That's not the same case, because you knew you were going to put it back on, right? Then you knew you put it back on. That's like the case of the half hour that the Ramah gave, that as long as it's within a half hour, you don't say another bracha. Now, if on the other hand, someone took them off and he wanted to put them away, right? He put them away. He thought he's over with tefillin. He took them off, tied them up, put them in the bag, put them on the shelf, put it away. And now he decided 1 minute later he wants to put them back on. He has to say a bracha again. Okay? That's the halakha brought down on the Yaakov Yosef English edition, page 83, 61, halakha 61, Simon 25. Okay, so now, yes, that's Daniel, right?
Yes, Rabbi. How about Kadesh Li?
Say again?
How about Kadesh Li?
To say the Kaddish Li, Kol Bechor?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it's a good minhag to always say Kaddish Li and Shema, all the parashiyot that are in the Tefillin, but you don't have to say it to be Yotzei Tefillin. In order to be Yotzei Tefillin, all you have to do is put it on for a few seconds, and you're ready Yotzei the mitzvah of Tefillin. That's la halakha l'maaseh. You don't have to say Shema in order to be Yotzei Tefillin. Tefillin is when you put on Tefillin, he's ready Yotzei the mitzvah. Now you should say Shema, say Kaddish Li, but you don't have to say it all over again when you took it off and put it back on. So, let's not go there. Okay, good. All right. So this is where the Mishnah Berurah is picking up now. Mishnah Berurah is picking up based on this din. So now that you told the person he has to take off his tefillin for eating, is that like saying he went to the bathroom and he has to make another bracha after he puts the tefillin back on?
No. Yes, I would say.
Or is it like it's within a half hour? So he's when the Rabbanan said you cannot wear your tefillin, does that make it a case that you cannot wear it in the bathroom and I have to make the bracha or not?
Yes, he got his mind off of it. He got involved in food. It's the same case with the bathroom.
Food is not a problem.
He lost his mind.
Right, but he's allowed to eat and drink. But the Rabbanan didn't let him eat and drink when he's eating a sudat kibbah. So what do we do? So it comes out to the halacha in the biur halacha of the Mishnah Berurah. He says here, Imkain hachanami kivan de gazu chazal. The last couple of lines over there on page 37. Kain hachanami kivan de gazu chazal shelo yelech be'et haseudah b'tefillin. Imkain adichai b'mitzvah. Then he was dismissed from the mitzvah. Then it was as if they told him you're stopping to do the mitzvah, and therefore if he's putting his tefillin back on, he's going to have to say a bracha as he's putting his tefillin back on. And he brings down here. He brings down here in the Yalkut Yosef, page 85 over here. And he says that we bring down from the Maran and the Mishnah Berurah and the Yalkut Yosef, Paskins, and this is what the Halacha Berurah also says, that if you took off your tefillin to eat a seudah, and now after the seudah, you're up to Birkat Hamazon, you're putting on your tefillin, so you're supposed to say the bracha again. So according to this means you do ma'im achronim, you say bracha la'aniach tefillin, you put on your tefillin, and now you say Birkat Hamazon. Very, very interesting way of this, because we don't wear tefillin all day. I guess that's why we don't know these stuff. But that's the halacha.
But
so you're going to take out anything from the question? Yes, Avram.
The question is, when we do Mayim Achronim, we're obligated to say Birkat Hamazon immediately. Why do we postpone?
Right. And that we mentioned that a couple of minutes ago, but we brought down from the Rambam and from others that this is still considered immediate. The fact you have to put on tefillin and say Birkat Hamazon tefillin, that's still considered that it's right away. And that if you can take out anything from this section that we learned up until now, take out this chekir, this difference between tzitzit and tefillin. If you take off your tefillin to go use the bathroom, you have to say a bracha when you're putting it back on. When you take off tzitzit, it's a beged, you're allowed to actually go into the bathroom with it. Therefore, you do not repeat the bracha over again. Otherwise, whenever you take off your tefillin for anything else, if you even had intention to put it back on, you do not say the bracha unless a half hour had passed. Once a half hour had passed, for both tefillin and tzitzit, you would say another bracha for it. Okay, good. Up until now, we went through.
One more question. If a tallit, if a tallit drops off your shoulder, like accidentally falls off, we say bracha on that? I think I learned you do if it falls off of you. Otherwise, you don't, if it's still on you.
Here, so I'm going to read to you from the Yalkut Yosef. It's on page 77 in the Yalkut Yosef English edition of Tzitzit, number 2.1. It says over here, on page 77, halacha 52, if someone's talit falls off, he must not repeat the blessing when he puts it back on, based on this principle of safek brachot lahakel. This is even if the entire talit fell onto the floor. If your whole talit fell onto the floor, you're not going, even if you go to the bathroom, take it off, you don't. Right, so even if your talit fell off, you do not say the bracha again for the talit. Okay, fine. Okay, so far, so good. Now we're on page 38, the Tzurba Rabbanon, and we're going to be talking about wearing tefillin all day. They start with the Gemara, Masechet Menachot. The Gemara asks, when do we wear tefillin? And it says, until it gets teshka achama. Rabbi Yaakov Omer, until people go away from the marketplace, until it's time to sleep. So either when the sun sets, when people are no longer in the marketplace, or when people are heading to bed. So basically, nighttime. Sometime at night is not the time for the mitzvah of tefillin. As the Rambam, the next source that brings down, Rambam Hilchot Tefillin, that's Hilchot Tefillah, says, man, Hanachat tefillin biyom, Eloi b'layla, Shneimar miyamim miyamima, as we read. It says in the day, Chukah zu hi mitzvah tefillin, v'chein Shabbatov yomim tovim, en azman tefillin, Shabbat and Yom Tov are not azman tefillin, Shneimar v'aya le'ot, it should be for you a sign, Shabbat Tov yomim tovim, hein atzman ot, Shabbat and Yom Tov is its own sign. When is the time to put it on? And you put it on from the time there's no Mishayakir, so when you can recognize your friend from 4 amot away, which we said was about 12 minutes after Alot. So 12 minutes after Alot, normally. So that's an hour before Nates, an hour before Nates. It's 12 minutes after Alot. Well, that's considered Mishiake. In pressing situations, you're allowed to do it 6 minutes after dawn, right? So after Alot, 6 minutes in pressing situations. Now, exactly how you calculate dawn, another question. We calculate dawn. We should calculate dawn 72 minutes before Nates. That's the way we should calculate it. Okay. Tzarech Adam lishtadel tan alav kol hayom. He says that the Rambam says the person should try to keep his tefillin all the way. Shemitzvatan kafki. That's the mitzvah. Amar alav al Rav Talmido Rabbeinu Hakadosh shekol yamav lo ra'ohu shehalach arba amot below Torah or below tzitzit or below tefillin. They said about Rav that in the student of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi that he was never seen walking 4 amot without tefillin. So the real halacha about tefillin, you're supposed to wear tefillin all day. That's the original source of tefillin. Now, already the Rosh, one of the Rishonim, and the Tur already bring down this practice that we do today, that we only wear tefillin on shacharit. Edna she'ein ragilin la'anichan ela b'shat tefillah. Because to keep a guf naki is not easy. Keep the body clean, proper to wear tefillin is not easy. Therefore, during tefillah, a person will be able to keep himself a guf naki. And we mentioned this many times over and over again. You got to get into the practice that before you go to daven, you use the bathroom. You try to really get everything out. So when you come, you have a real guf naki. Okay? Shulchan Aruch brings us down l'halacha. He says, mitzvatan leotam alav kol hayom, to have it all day. Of l'pnei shetzrichem guf naki, because you need a clean body, shlo yafiach b'hem, shlo yasiach dato mehem, because you cannot pass wind, or you cannot lose your mind from them. You cannot forget that you're wearing them. Ve'ein kol adam yochel izar b'hem, and not every person can do that. Nahagu shelo la'anichem kol hayom. We now practice that we don't wear tefillin all day. We call mokom tzarich kol adam leizar b'hem leotam alav b'shat kriyat shema v'tefillah. But you got to be very careful to make sure, at the minimum, to wear tefillin during Shema and Shmona Esrei of Shacharit. That's the minimum a person has to make sure he's wearing his tefillin. Shema and Shmona Esrei. Okay? Minimum. Better is you can wear it longer. That's the minimum. And that's what the Mishnah Berurah brings. Zehu l'chol adam. This is for all people. Al anshe ma'isa, a person who have action, real people who are trying to be better. Nohagin lilmod achar tefillah b'tefillin. They make sure to learn with their tefillin after the tefillah. But if you're going to do this, you got to be very careful not to talk devarim b'tilin. Talking anything that's not necessary in tefillin, it's a big problem. I'll tell you, better take it off and don't learn in tefillin. You're going to talk devarim b'tilin. You're losing out on the mitzvah. Yes, Avram.
Okay, wearing a tefillin is a one-time mitzvah when you say bracha and that's it, or it's a continuous mitzvah until we take it off.
What do you mean by what would be the difference?
I put it on, I say bracha, and that's it. Just get one mitzvah. It doesn't matter how long you wear it. 5 hours, 1 hour is just one mitzvah.
No, it'll make it every minute that you're wearing is a mitzvah.
It's a continuous until you take it off, right?
Yeah.
Right,
all mitzvot are really that way. There's a hischadshus, there's a renewal of the mitzvah as every second goes by. Right? There was a two rabbanim, they were walking together and they had a question about kiddushin. A man makes kiddushin to a woman, he marries her. So the question is it a one-time mitzvah, or like you asked, is it a continuous thing? So now the other rabbi turned to him and said to him, Mazel Tov. He says, Mazel Tov. And you finally realize that your marriage is renewed every single minute of the day. It's always a renewal. The same thing with the mitzvah and everything else. There's always a renewal. You make a bracha when you start it, right? Before you start a mitzvah, you make a bracha, but the mitzvah goes throughout. Okay. He continues, cautious not to speak on any idle chatter, for aside the prohibition of idle chatter, he will come also to Hesach Hadat. He'll come to forget he's wearing tefillin. So he wants to learn. Ben Omash, he's going to learn. But meanwhile, he's on the way to learning. He's like Rav School of my Manal of the Bet Medrash one time. he gave a shmooze in Torah V'dat. He gave a shmooze. He said he doesn't know since when Torah V'dat's base medrash turned into a Grand Central Station. Everyone was like, "What do you mean?" He says, "Wait till they get to their seat. They stop at everybody else's seat to talk for 5 minutes. By the time they get to the seats, the end of the seder already. It's over, right?" He says it's not supposed to be that way. So the Mishnah says the same thing. If you're going to talk with your tefillin, don't keep it on for learning. Rather take it off. Okay.
Maybe motion.
Yes.
I think it was good to learn Rabbeinu Tam, no? So if person has Rabbeinu Tam, should switch it.
Yeah.
Or should do
We're
both,
going to get into. I don't know if I'll get into Rabbeinu Tam, but the next year in the Tzurba is actually getting into Rabbeinu Tam, when to put it on, when to use it and stuff like that. But yeah, there is a concept of that as well. Okay. Now he brings over here in the Tzurba. Now he wants to bring this idea about, you know how we said you're allowed to eat in Tefillin and you're allowed to sleep for a second, for 54 seconds, whatever it is. The Mishnah Berurah, you're allowed to eat whatever you're allowed to eat outside of a sukkah on Sukkot, you're allowed to eat with your Tefillin, whatever you're allowed to eat. The Mishnah Berurah wants to bring down from a Shulchan Shlomo all these kulot that we said you can do with Tefillin, sleep a little bit. Was this dafka only when they wore Tefillin all day? And since they were wearing Tefillin all day, we gave them some leniencies. But today, when we're not nohig to wear Tefillin all day, should these leniencies not apply? That's what he brings down from the Shulchan Shlomo. The Sefer Shulchan Shlomo mistapek. The after is the zehut dafka misham nichon kol hayom avaloi mi shidar kol aniach b'shat kriyat shema b'tefillah. Perhaps these leniencies that we brought down do not apply to someone who wears tefillin like us. So here I'm going to bring you now to the Yalkut Yosef English edition of Tefillin on page 325, if I wrote it down correctly. Note 400, 345, I meant. Yeah, 300. Well, 435 is supposed to be 345. This is a ruling. So he brings over here. The Mishnah Berurah brings down the Shulchan Shlomo suggestion that only someone who wears tefillin all day long is permitted to snack while wearing them, but not someone who wears tefillin only during shacharit. The Rav Shonim and Achronim, however, did not make any such distinction. He says here in the note, they didn't make that difference. The Shulchan Aruch testified that our custom is not to wear tefillin all day long. Shulchan Aruch already said we don't wear tefillin all day long, and yet he brought down the halakha that you're allowed to eat with tefillin with Sudat Arai. You're allowed to eat with your tefillin. He says you don't wear tefillin all day, and then he says you can eat Sudat Arai with your tefillin. So therefore, you should be allowed all these leniencies as well. There's no reason to distinguish between someone who wears tefillin for an hour or all day long. All these leniencies are permissible. Here he brings down from the Kuntras over Ora that if someone wishes to spend some time after Shacharit studying Torah, he may eat snacks so that he can study without interruption. So the Shulchan Shlomo was mesupik whether these leniencies apply. He brings down over here, there's nothing to be mesupik about, and all these leniencies, even though you only wear tefillin for an hour or so nowadays, you're still allowed to eat a Sudat Arai, whatever is allowed outside of a sukkah, you're allowed to eat it with your tefillin on. Then he brings down here from the Piskei Teshuvot as well. A person wants to sit and learn with it, he's allowed to do it lechatchila. No reason why not to. It says, so too you see Gedolei Yisrael, they would get a coffee or something, and they would learn with their tefillin on. No problem with it. He says, however, if he already plans to remove the tefillin shortly, it's appropriate to refrain from eating and drinking anything so long as the tefillin are upon him. If he's about to take it off, don't eat. If you're about to take it off anyway, don't eat. And you're going to keep it on for some time, you can eat. If you're going to take it off the next second, next minute, next 2 minutes, take it off and don't leave it on when you're eating. I brought down here another note. So here in the Tzurba, he brings down an interesting thing that he says over here about wearing tefillin all day. It's worth noting that all of the common practice to wear tefillin only during shacharit in recent years, it's become less unusual to see people dyeing tefillin in other times. An increasing number of yeshivot and communities, he says, especially in Israel, some people wear tefillin throughout the whole day. You've seen such people?
I've seen people wearing, but not.
If you saw people wearing it, you heard. It says they're studying Torah. Careful to keep a guf naki. He sees people like this. So I wanted to see if Yaakov Yosef brought anything down on it. So I found on page 267, here in the Yaakov Yosef in the English edition, he brings down over here, someone who wishes to wear tefillin all day. Is that permissible? Someone today has a guf naki and he's not working. He's able to sit and learn and think. Is he allowed to do that or not? He brings down from the Rebbeinu Yerucham as follows, who cites a Talmud Yerushalmi that says, we do not wear tefillin anymore all day, and no one should do it, because what's going to happen? People are going to think the person wearing tefillin all day is a big tzaddik, and that guy knows this, so he's going to take advantage of it. He's a swindler, and he's going to wear tefillin, and then he's going to get into a business deal with you and steal your money. That was only the Rebbeinu Yerucham. Others, though, disagree with this. He brought down from Tosafot that this Gemara, he brought it from the Gemara Yerushalmi. The Magen Avram Pascha said that you shouldn't wear it all day because people are going to think you're a big tzaddik. You don't want to let people think that you're a big tzaddik, right? Because that can cause problems. But he brings down here, the Tosafot says no. The Yerushalmi is not saying you shouldn't wear it all day. Yerushalmi is saying you should be careful if someone wears. Check him out, who he really is. Just because he's wearing tefillin all day, I remember a couple of years ago, somebody came from Israel and they said he never opens his eyes. His eyes are always shut. It's a great thing, but I don't know if that means anything else about him. I don't know what that means. Who is he? What is he? Keeps his eyes shut. Very beautiful. Maybe it's a great guy. Possible. You have to always find out. Gemara tells us, you have to respect everybody. You also have to suspect everybody. You don't know who's who.
Yeah,
right?
I saw that guy.
Then, what do you say, Avram?
I saw that guy.
Okay, I don't know. I don't even know who he was. I just knew people were talking about it, and I was like, why is everyone so excited? Hey, he's closing his eyes all day. Does he learn Torah all day, or he just closes his eyes all day? I don't know what he does. So you have to know the side to get. What?
Yeah, that's funny. No, that's funny.
No, that's the whole point. You don't get caught up in these little things that people say. Right. You have to know the whole person. You have to know everybody, and nobody knows anybody. The only person who knows someone is Hashem and someone's wife, someone's spouse. They know each other. No one else knows anything. Okay. Not to get off topic, but we had recently Eretz Yisrael. This guy was a prolific author, writing book after books, therapist. Everyone thought of him, and all of a sudden, all these things came out about him. And someone came over to me 2 weeks after this whole story came. And someone came over to me here in this shul and said to me, Moshe, I don't understand. How could such a thing be? I said, what do you mean such a thing be? A person has a Yetzer Hara. Everyone has a Yetzer Hara. You don't have a Yetzer Hara? In fact, we're taught that the greater you are, the greater Yetzer Hara you have. So what do you have to do? Be very careful. You look through our Chachamim, the Gemara tells us the guy, he saved the girls, he put them in the attic. In the middle of the night, he was running up the ladder. He started screaming, fire, fire, fire. Where's the fire? It's my Yetzer Hara. It's burning me. I wanted to go to he picked up the ladder himself, which took like 10 people to do. The Yetzer Hara is the Yetzer Hara. You can't trust anybody. That's always. You don't know. You don't know. There, we had the Kohen Gadol, 80 years in the Beis Hamikdash, and ended up being an Apikaris later on in life. You have to be very careful. Always be very careful. So anyway, he continues though. He brings down here a story about a young Torah student who entrusted his money with an individual because he was wearing tefillin all day. So he gave it to him. Afterwards, he went to this guy who was wearing tefillin all day. He said, give me my money back. It was over Shabbat, I guess. And now this guy said to him, I don't know what you're talking about. The guy with the tefillin all day. So this young student said, listen, when I gave you the money to hold for me, I didn't give it to you, but I gave it to your tefillin. It's you have to know how to look at it. Yeah, and then get the money back. That's what I'm trying to tell you. If someone does something, and the way I look at it, these type of things that are extraordinary, they could be very great. But if it's only theatrics, it's just to show, it's a big problem. You don't know. You have to really understand who this person is. Usually the great rabbis, they're not doing theatrics. I'm saying Chamabaji didn't walk around, with theatrics. He didn't come into a room with the theatrics. He didn't say he was doing theatrics. Meanwhile, at home, he was the biggest Kabbalist learning all day. All right. It's different types. Like my Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Reisman, doesn't walk around with his eyes shut when he's walking down the street. He's not doing that. He's a big Rosh Yeshiva. He's a big tzaddik. He's gadol. You have to understand what's what. Anyway, he brings down the Bir Halacha, El Yerabah, and others who say if someone today feels that he can wear tefillin all day, he should. He can remain. He should wear it all day. He has to be very careful. Gufnaki, not to forget he's wearing it. But if a person can, he should. Harvelio of Vilna, the Gra says that if you're wearing tefillin all day, you should do it in such a way that people don't see. See, people shouldn't see. This is what the Vilna Gaon says. If you're wearing tefillin all day, wear it in such a way people don't see. He says, just wear the shel yad and not the shel rosh. Or if you can get a very small shel rosh and hide it under your hat. That's what the Vilna Gaon says. You want to wear tefillin all day? Beautiful. No one else should know about it. That's mean you're doing something l'shem shemayim. Anyone who's capable of fulfilling the mitzvah all day is very fortunate. The Talmud in Megillah says when Rav Zera was asked what was the secret to his long life, he said he never let 2 seconds go by without speaking words of Torah or without wearing tefillin. So a thing brought down from the Yalkut Yosef is that if a person wants to wear tefillin all day, permissible for him to wear tefillin all day. So it's not a theatrical thing, but you have to do it in a way that's not theatrical. It shouldn't be for show. I think in Russian, pakazuchi, how do you say it? For show? All right, it should be because it's bringing a person closer to Hashem and Avodat Hashem. Okay, the Tzurba now is going to end off with woman and tefillin. So there's a famous idea that Rashi's daughters wore tefillin. I'm just going to tell you straight up, there's no source for that Rashi's daughters wore tefillin. Many believe that it was the Reform movement that decided to make up that rumor. The Gemara does say, though, that there was a woman who did wear tefillin. So let's go through starting from the Mishnah. Mishnah Berachot brings down Nashim Vavadim Tanim Paturim Kriyat Shema Umina Tefillin. The Gemara Berachot says a woman, a servant, a child are pater from Shema and tefillin. Why? Because it's mitzvah man grama. Shita Ma'odetema Hoyel Veit Keshla Mezuzah Kamash Milan. It's all simple. It's man grama. It's a mitzvah that's based on time. These people don't have their own time, and therefore they cannot do mitzvot of time. Woman is patur. So why are you telling me? Because tefillin and mezuzah are in the same parasha, same pasuk, right? Put it on your gates, put it on your hand, put it on your head. So you might think tefillin is similar to mezuzah. Even a woman should put on tefillin. Therefore, telling us no. The Gemara in Eruvin tells us Micha bat of Kushi, who is Shaul, Hayita manechet tefillin. She put on tefillin. V'loy michu ba chachamim. And the Chachamim didn't protest against her. That's where the famous idea everyone says that a woman put on tefillin is based on this Gemara in Eruvin. However, the Yerushalmi, same Gemara in Yerushalmi, it says, she would wear tefillin. This is the Lashon Leveshet. I wonder why. And the Chachamim didn't protest. Rabbi Chizkiah b'shem Rabbi Abahu says, no, don't say the rabbis didn't protest. Michal bat Shaul, michu b'chachamim. The rabbis protested against her actions. So according to the version, the Yerushalmi, the rabbis protested against Michal's acts of putting on tefillin. So already when the one source that we have of a female putting on tefillin, that itself was already protested by the rabbis of the time. Shulchan Aruch, Archaim, Simon Lam Chet says, Nashim v'avadim peturim tefillin mipnei shu mitzvah aseh she'azman grama. It's a mitzvah bound to time, so they're patur. And the Ramah says, v'imanoshim rotzin lachmir al atzman mochin beyadan. We protest if the women decide that they want to be machmir and they want to put on tefillin. We have to protest them putting on tefillin. They're not allowed to put on tefillin. They're not allowed to put on tefillin. According to Halacha, women are not allowed to put on tefillin. They're not allowed to. I'm not talking about Sefer Torah. I'm talking about tefillin. Now, the Aruch HaShulchan is going to explain why they can't put on tefillin. What is the isur of putting on a tefillin for a woman? So the Aruch HaShulchan pretty much says it has to do with guf naki, having a clean body. We already said it's very hard to have a clean body for a man, right? It's very hard. But a man has a chiyuv, an obligation to put on tefillin. So therefore, we tell him, put it on during Shema and Shemona Esrei. A woman has no obligation for putting on tefillin. So therefore, guf naki is hard, don't put it on at all. That's the way the Aruch HaShulchan wants to learn. Others say it's just harder for a woman to have a clean body. Boys are raised to have a clean body. Girls are not trained that way. Also, girls have the period, they have cycle, they have different things that are coming out, and it's harder for them to have a cleaner body than a man. And therefore, they can never have a guf naki. And since they don't have a guf naki, they should not be putting on a tefillin at all. He brings down here from Rav Henkin that says, so a woman asked him, it's Charles Sheshuva Sefer, and a woman asked him, could I put on tefillin? I want to feel connected to God. Could I put on tefillin? He says, V'ein lach la'aniach tefillin, k'moshe katzvu v'poskim, baruch hayim siman l'mechet tziv gimel, v'tiro talmud Torah le'isha l'tzarech. They permitted a woman to learn Torah when she needs to. Well, what do they have to know? Women have to know Torah. They don't have to know make challah. They have to know how to keep kosher kitchen. So that means they can learn taruvot, basar mehalav. They can learn ma'achot akum. All these hard yordei shirim, they can learn because they need to know what's kosher and what's not. Mutar, checking bugs, Shabbat, all the halachot of Shabbat, halachot tefillah that pertain to women. They have tons of stuff that they can learn. Tons of things they can learn. All mutar for them. ויש לחזק את הקשר לדת באופנים אחרים. And there, tefillin ain't l'tzarech. Tefillin not for their need; they don't need it. And therefore, yesh l'chazak et hakesher l'dat b'ofnim achrim. Therefore, if you want to come closer to Hashem, you have to find the proper channels for it. And this is Rabbi Henkin writing this. I wanted to show you in the Yalkut Yosef. He adds on another reason why women, even if Yosef, you were saying that somehow it's mutar for women to wear tefillin. He says today they should not put on tefillin at all. He says as follows. Some poskim say another reason why women cannot wear tefillin because they're considered a man's clothing. It's considered the big day zachar, a man's clothing, and therefore a woman cannot wear. Right, you know, a man cannot wear woman's clothing, a woman cannot wear man's clothing, so therefore she cannot put on tefillin.
Well, that's right.
No, I never have him writing tefillin. The Targum of the Torah, he says as follows. He brought down. No, we don't have women writing. The Kaf Chaim Sofer added. Right, you want to put it on, you have to write. Okay, but listen to this. The Arizal said that if a woman puts on tefillin, it harms her. It harms her neshama. Woman who put on tefillin, it harms her neshama. That's from the Arizal. Now, here he brings down further in the notes. He says, especially today, when there are women who go to the kotel every Rosh Chodesh and they put on tefillin, the woman of the wall, and the reformists, they put on tefillin, and they're making all these things. He says, woman today, even if it would be allowed for women to wear tefillin, the woman should definitely not put on tefillin today, because it's showing that you're going away from the Misorah of the Torah, and you're going to follow these other breakaway and fake things, fake Judaism, which is completely asur. So women and tefillin, asur. Megamre, they're not allowed to put on tefillin. So someone asked me on Shabbat a question about Yortzeit and Kaddish and stuff like that. So I was looking through the Yalkut Yosef, just looking to find the answer, and I stumbled upon the halakha about women saying Kaddish for their parents. Let's say they didn't have a son, right? And now the girl wants to say Kaddish. So there were opinions that if it's not in a big shul, it's in a side room, it's in a minyan at home. But they brought down from Yitzchak Yosef and the Yalkut Yosef, he writes that today it should not be done at all for the same reason. Because the reformists want to say that the woman can say Kaddish, women can read the Torah, women can do this and that, we have to completely not do it at all. And therefore, a woman today, even if she's the only child, definitely, even if it's a small shul, small minion in the house, whatever it is, should not be saying Kaddish at all. Instead,
If she's making Yisrael for her parents,
she should not say the Kaddish. But they should not. What they're allowed to, and what is theoretically allowed and what is permissible are two different things. There are a lot of stuff that are theoretically allowed, but it's not what we know. You have to go with what we're noheg with. Very important in halakha to follow what we are noheg at this time. What is the minhag? What is the being practiced? Okay. Actually, here in the Tzurba, he brings down over here. He says all boys can pretty much say it's asur for him to put on tefillin. He says there's one boysik who is actually in pretty much hot water right now. In the news, I don't know if you read it a couple of weeks ago. There's one boysik, Rabbi Eliezer Melamed, who wrote the Sefer Sfarim Peninei Halacha, that he's always taking a very lenient approach for a lot of things. And right now he's in a lot of hot water. There was Rabbanim came out, Kol Kare, you shouldn't buy his books anymore and stuff like that. And he was the only one who said that women are allowed to wear tefillin. No other person. Now this is a clear Gemara that we had in Sanhedrin that even if you go according to the one person, that's one dot, that's considered a huge mistake. That's not the way you're placed. That's not what we know. You don't go with the one opinion. You don't even make a tzira. You don't even combine that opinion for anybody. Hey, Rabbi Eliezer Melamed, that's his name. You can take a look at him. I only know the name because I was reading the This is Naya's news, and I saw his name pop up. And then when I was reading here, I saw this. And here he says he's the only one. He's one of the few poskim who are slightly more lenient. He doesn't say what he actually allows or doesn't allow. And I didn't read his Pnei Halacha either to see what he says. And he only brought it as a footnote. He didn't bring it in the sources up here either. So, in the end of the day, if you heard Rashi's daughters put on tefillin, never happened. Rashi's daughters never put on tefillin. There is no source that says that. That was a reform movement misinformation. That's like Russia puts out a lot of misinformation in the world. Fake news. That was fake news at the time. To give support to reform Judaism, to say that women are allowed to put on tefillin, they came up with this idea that Rashi's daughters put on tefillin. This all based on Michal, Shaul's daughter, put on tefillin. The Gemara in Shami says the rabbis were screaming at her that you're not allowed to do it. So from the earliest source, you already see that it's forbidden. That is the halakha ma'aseh. Women forbidden to put on tefillin. Tochka. Okay, neguda. Okay, he brings over here from the on page 44 the machshava thought about tefillin, and he brings the base from the Yehirat Son that said in some sidurim before tefillin. The tzivaru la'aniach halayad. He gave us a command to put it on the hand. V'shehi neged halev, and it's opposite the heart. The heart. L'shabed bazeh ta'avat u'machshavot libenu la'avod hatoit b'rach shemo. Why you put it on the hand? The hand is the power, and it's right across the heart because the heart is the seat of desire, right? You have a desire, and your hands take out, get what you want. So you have to now take your heart and your hand and make it the Ratzon Hashem, like the Pirkei Avot says. Ba'al harosh neged hamoach, and you put it on the head, is the brain. Sheneshama shebemochi, which is in the head. Imshar hushi v'chochatai, but the rest of his senses and his power, kulam yu mishubadim la'avodatoi b'rach shemo. Everything that you want to do goes through your head. All goes through here and comes out. That all of that has to be set to Hashem. Umishefa mitzvah tefillin yitmashech alai liot li chayim aruchim. And through the source, the influence of the mitzvah, the blessing that comes out of the mitzvah tefillin, I should have long life, and it should be a holy life, and I should have holy thoughts. Believe hirhur chait, without any thoughts of sin. You know, you're putting on tefillin, you can have hesach dat from your tefillin. That means your tefillin, like the Rambam says, putting on tefillin is supposed to give you a clear mind, a straight mind when you put on tefillin. And that they shouldn't, the Yetzer Hara should not entice us, shouldn't get us, shouldn't bring us into any problems V'yanihenu la'avod et Hashem kasher im levavenu. But it shall allow us to serve Hashem as is the true desire of our hearts. And this is where we're going to end the shir for today on Tefillin. If anyone had any questions at this time, I will take them.
If you do need to have gas, what do you do?
Okay, good question. So he asked, person was wearing tefillin and he did pass gas. So you're not allowed to pass gas. And now he did pass gas.
No, you need to. You did.
Oh, he needs to.
Yeah.
Oh, so what? Okay, so both good questions. What do you do if he needs to?
Answer
And what
both
do you
questions.
do? What do you do if you need to? Right? Okay.
I learned that you need to walk out. You pick up your
Right. Okay. So he says over here. The Mishnah Berurah explained that when someone needs to break wind, it's not necessary to completely take off the tefillin. It's sufficient to move the tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh away from their proper position, so that one is no longer fulfilling the mitzvah of tefillin. In order for tefillin to be beyond the tefillin, has to be in the right spot and has to be on the right spot. So if you move it out of the right spot and out of the right spot, tefillin is not considered on you because it's not put on correctly. At that point, you're allowed to break gas. Now, after breaking wind, passing gas, what do? Do you have to say bracha again or not? We said if you go to the bathroom, you're not allowed to wear tefillin in the bathroom. So when you come out of your bathroom, you have to say bracha again. Tefillin. Unlike tzitzit, you're allowed to go in. Now, what happened if I had to break wind?
No,
he
you don't.
brings down over here. He brings down over here. Mishnah Berurah cited the Hayei Adam that if someone takes off his tefillin for a moment in order to relieve himself for flatulence, to pass gas, he must repeat the blessing when putting them back on. Since it's forbidden to wear the tefillin at that moment, it's considered an interruption. We may assume that Maran Shalom Tzion agreed to this, since the same practice apply here when he's going to the restroom. But here, the Hayei Adam said if he takes it off for a moment, I don't know if he moves it out of the side, does he say it again or not? Does anyone know?
Logically, he doesn't need to. Just moved it through, or he picked it up for a moment.
But he's not allowed to wear his tefillin at that time, right?
It's not
He's not taking it off.
long enough, not long time enough.
No, we don't say
Not
bracha.
enough time.
You don't, you do, you don't. He says if you take it off, you took it off
Completely.
to pass gas. You took it off.
Completely.
Someone takes off his tefillin for a moment. Here, so he says as follows here on the top. If someone was wearing tefillin and suddenly they slipped out of place, right? He's wearing tefillin and slipped out of place. He does not repeat the bracha when returning to the proper place, even though this is equal to the beginning of the mitzvah all over again, and it should warrant another blessing. We refrain from reciting one because the principle of safek brachot lahakel. I'm still mesupik if he moves his tefillin to pass gas, whether he has to say bracha or not. Yeah, but the real question is, at that time, were you allowed to wear tefillin? If you were not allowed to wear tefillin at that time, it's considered as you not wearing tefillin. Then you should be having to say the bracha again.
Or if you misplaced it.
But that's misplacing, but you never passed the gas. You just misplaced it. It's as if, what did we say?
When tefillin is not on the right spot, it's not like considered wearing. So you're not wearing.
No. But the Ramah said that if I take off my tefillin, I have a half hour to put it on. I don't say bracha still. So if my tefillin slipped, I'm still within that half hour. I put it on. Put another bracha.
No,
But
that's what we don't say.
because it slipped out of place. It's not that I'm not allowed to wear it at one point. There's no X there. There's no cancellation of the mitzvah. When I'm passing gas, there is a cancellation of the mitzvah.
Why you pass the gas? There is no tefillin on spot, so it's considered as you're not wearing it.
And when you're not wearing it, it's off you. You don't have to go to the bathroom. Why? Because when you go to the bathroom, you're not allowed to wear tefillin. But why? Because when you are expelling from yourself defecation, right? You're expelling so out from yourself. At that time, you're not allowed to wear tefillin. So when you're passing gas, it's the same thing. You're not allowed to wear tefillin at that moment.
Why passing gas? So
you have to have a guf naki. That's not considered guf naki if you're passing gas. That's straight Gemara. It's a question Gemara. You're not allowed to pass gas. It's not a guf naki. So if you're not a guf naki, I don't know.
if that's the case, you should just start all over again.
In the case of accidentally done, then what?
Say again, Avram.
And accidentally, if it happened already while wearing it, tefillin, then what happens?
Well, that's good. Yeah, accidentally.
Accidentally. He passed gas. He shouldn't be wearing his tefillin at that time if he's accidentally putting on gas. I'll tell you the
No,
truth.
listen, Moshe, in a situation, a person is praying, davening, whatever the situation is, and boom, it just came out. Young, old, whatever, it doesn't matter. What does he do? He doesn't take it off. He just let it go. You're not gonna take it off, say bracha again, you don't do that. So what's the situation in this case? You just move on with your life.
I'm not sure. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know.
Just move on with your life.
Listen. You should definitely do tshuva. Yeah, if it happened, it's sin. You have to give tzedakah, do tshuva as is, and a person should take upon himself to be more careful. It's very important to have a guf naki. If you don't have a guf naki, don't put on tefillin. Sometimes you go to shul, you see someone has a tefillin next to him, he's not putting it on. And he'll just put it on for Shema and Shemona Esrei. And you're like, why he's not putting it on the whole time? Because he knows the halakha, you're not allowed to put it on when you don't have a guf naki. So he'll rather put it on for 10 minutes. He'll know I have a guf naki for 10 minutes, and that's it. It's very dangerous. You're doing what's asur. I don't know what to say at this other point. I'm going to try to look it up, Be'ezrat Hashem, and I'll get back to it. Okay? All right, Rabotai. If you find out the answers before me, please let me know.
Show what the.
All right, Shavua Tov. Thank you.